Squiggy's Dugout today. As I mentioned yesterday, I wasn't able to complete the poll list that I wanted to do. So what I'm doing right now is I'm giving you a live poll list of books that are coming out, not just for next week's poll list, but some of the books that actually came out. Some came out today, officially came out today, and some books that are scheduled to come out for tomorrow, this Wednesday. I have Peter that's here, and we're in the working store right now. So Peter's going to be jumping in from time to time again, and of course he has to work. So if people come in, he's going to go assist them. But in the meantime, we're going to talk a little bit about this week's comic books. And again, if you want to say anything in the chat, go ahead and let me know in the chat. We'll be waiting for people to come in, but we are live right now, and this is a recording that's going on. I'm just going to show you some of the books I picked up, and then as Peter comes in, we'll talk a little bit more about some of the other books. So, one of the books I did pick up, I'll do the Riddler Year One. Why am I picking this book up? Well, it's really simple. Paul Dano wrote it. And he has a new artist that's here. His name is Stefan Subic. I'm trying to say his name properly. If I butcher his name, I'm good at butchering names. But this is a book that I wanted to pick up, so I picked it up today. I'm going to read it today. I want to check it out. Let me know what you guys think of this book here. Another book that I picked up here. Let's see here. I picked up another book that I actually came in bagged already, and that is Batman Gotham Knights Gilded City. Why is this book so important? Well, it features a code to release, I think it's the Batmobile. It's going to release the Batmobile in the Gotham City game, so that's why it's there, and that's why this is a hot book, similar to the Fortnite book that came out a few months ago. This is the same deal here. So this book is the book that a lot of people are going to be looking for and picking up because they're going to have that special code for that game. Go pick it up. Pick it up as soon as possible. If you could go to a comic book shop today to go pick it up, it's available right now in your comic book shops. Also, I picked up from Marvel. I picked up some Marvel books here. First one I picked up is, of course, I had to pick up Strange Academy, the finals. This is the closing of the first season of Strange Academy, the freshman year, as we'll call it. And this book is a book here that I've been looking to. You got the son of Dormammu. That's a big deal. That character is going to have some longevity, where they got some plans for that character. But I picked this one up. It comes out officially tomorrow. Another book that I've been hearing a lot of talks about. I haven't read much of it, but I know for a fact that it has some hype in it, and it also features Brian Hitch's work. So, Venom number 12 came out this week. It's coming out tomorrow. Officially comes out tomorrow. This book has some buzz to it. There's a lot of talk about this book and certain characters that are going to be coming in this book here. So go check that book out. And because of the hype train, and of course I like to ride the hype train very so often, I picked up Moon Knight Annual number 1. So why did I pick this up? Because it features Moon Knight. It features Werewolf by Night. And if you guys are like me, you saw the show, you liked the show, that's why I picked it up. Because Moon Knight was part of Werewolf by Night. In fact, he made his debut in Werewolf by Night. And this is the book that I picked up. So those are the new books I picked up. I also picked up 2 more books, and I did say I picked up some books from DC. Book I picked up it's not a new book, but it's one that I picked up and I wanted to pick up because I just love this cover right here. And that's Robin the Boy Wonder, the sensational Tim Drake. This is the 2nd issue, and as you can see, it's paying homage to the first appearance of Robin, which is Nightwing now, and there he is right there in that cover. So I picked that one up. And another book that I picked up, which again, just because of the cover alone, I picked it up. And that is Batman versus Robin number 1. Just look at that cover. I'm going to zoom in for you and look up that cover there. So those are the books I picked up this week. There's a lot of books coming up. I got a little list here that I'm going to talk about next week's books. But as Peter starts getting ready, we'll talk a little bit more about what his picks are for this week. And if you like what you see here, just let me know in the comments. If you want to see more of these, then we'll definitely make those happen. But as he does that, I'm just letting you guys know that we are at Squiggy's Dugout. We're in New Rochelle. The exact address is, what's the address again?
237A Main Street, New Rochelle, New York.
Okay.
10801.
Okay, I hope you guys pick that up. If not, I'll make sure it's in the descriptions there when we get to it. But it's right off of Main Street, a little bit off of New Rock City. But there's a McDonald's, there's a nice little shopping center here. It's nothing big. There's a Carvel here. Great place. Go pick up your books. They are an LCS. When you come here, you see nothing but comic books. They sell some baseball cards, but comic books is the number one thing. It's called Squiggy's Dugout for a reason, but now we focus on comic books. So please let me know in the chat what you think about the place. But now I'm going to let Peter come in. Peter, come on down.
Hi guys. You'll have to forgive me if I sound weird. I'm not really used to talking on camera. Sorry if my hair is a bit of a mess. Um, well, thank you, Izzy, for giving me a chance to put my 2 cents in about
Yeah.
this week's new releases.
Yeah.
For DC, I would suggest Action Comics number 1048.
Mhm.
On account of this will be setting up a future plot line in the Superman titles,
Mhm.
establishing Superman and Lois Lane potentially adopting those two children whom he rescued from the War World story arc
Mhm.
as a sort of potential means to kind of make up for how they
Mhm.
handled the situation with their natural son John Kent when they let him go off with Superman's supposed father, Mr. Oz, and we all know how that ended up. So here's hoping they get it right the next time.
Yeah, I was looking at this book. First of all, when I saw the cover, it's a very interesting cover. Do you know who? Do you happen to know who the artist of this book is? The cover artist? Because I'm trying to
Hmm.
see. He looks familiar, but it has that old
It,
what's the word? Saturday morning
Steve
newsprint.
Beach.
Steve Beach did the artwork.
Yep.
There he goes. There, oh, look at it right there.
Yeah, he did the 1 in 25 variant
Hmm.
for the Dark Crisis Worlds Without a Justice League
Hmm.
Superman
Yeah,
issue.
he draws Superman very different. Like he doesn't look as young as other Supermen. So this is a more aged version of Superman. I've noticed. Cool, but there you guys go. Pick up this one. It came out today, right?
Mm-hmm.
Came out today. Action Comics issue 1048. All right. So what's our next book that you're picking?
Well, for Marvel, I would like to suggest New Mutants number 31, which is the start of Charlie Jane Anders as the writer and picks up from a story that was released in the Marvel Pride issue this year featuring New Mutant Escapade, and also picks up on one of the plot lines from the previous writers, including Sarabella, whom, if any of you have remembered Grant Morrison's run on X-Men, was previously known as no Girl,
Hmm.
the brain in the tank that was floating around with Ernst. And it also features the return of a surprise Morrison X Men villain, but since I've mentioned No Girl, I guess you guys can guess who that might be.
Yeah, I remember Noger. In fact, I was talking to someone just today actually. We're talking about different X-Men runs that were really fun. I personally liked from the newer runs the E for Extinction, which featured Quentin Quarrel,
Yeah.
and she was part of that storyline too. And
Yes, that was where she was introduced. She
mhm,
was a mutant who was kidnapped and victimized by the U-Men, who
mhm,
are basically mutant wannabes that go around stealing organs trying to give themselves superpowers.
mhm,
She was first introduced as only a brain in a jar, and then was later included in the Xavier Institute's special class that was being run by Zorn, which later became the new Brotherhood of Mutants when we found out who Zorn was supposed to be
mhm.
at the time.
Yeah, yeah, I remember that
Yeah,
story.
that got kind of complicated
Got
because of the
retconned a little bit, right?
editors.
Because it was supposed to be Magneto. It was revealed that it was Magneto, but then
And
something
then
else changed
not,
it.
yeah. Well, for all the problems that later came with that era, it's still my favorite because of the variety of characters you have when the Xavier Institute was, actually a school instead of just like five kids at once.
Yeah, and Grant Morrison and Frank Quetley, who, not to mention Ethan Van Sciver, who was also part of that run. They first of all two different style of artists. Frank Quetley, his aesthetics is
Mm-hmm.
amazing. Like no one could tell a story the way he does, and he was able to do that. Same thing could be said about Ethan Van Sciver's story and his run in it, because everybody talks about the sex issue where he managed to put the word sex in a whole bunch of different
Yeah.
places, but it's all led by Grant Morrison's writing, which
Mm-hmm.
took the X-Men to a different world. Like you said, it was more like a school. They were all in their leather outfits because it
Hmm.
was more in tune with the movie series, even though it was nothing like the movie series.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I remember that run. So great picks. What else do we got?
Well, from Image Comics, we have the final issue for the new Rogues Gallery series, which has honestly given me a lot to think about as a fan and the way that we interact with creators both online and in real life. And it's just been a really fun story. I was lucky enough to meet Hannah Rose May at New York Comic Con a couple of weeks ago. And I'm glad that they're getting their own TV adaptation because it's well deserved and it's a story that really needs to be told, even though it's a bit disappointing that we have to keep telling the story over and over again until it finally sinks in.
Yeah, and I remember I actually did pick up these books. I don't know if it was comic. Was it? Yeah, it was New York. I did pick up the books because I heard all the buzz behind it. I heard the fact that it's kind of like it's almost a satire of what reality is like, especially when it comes to geekum and the
Well, I mean,
Twitter and
honestly,
all
with the
that
way
stuff.
a lot of fans act, what these characters do in the story, it's not that far fetched, especially with everything else that's going on in the
Hmm.
world with all this idiots with guns out there.
Yeah, exactly. All right, and now it looks to me like we're getting something that's going for, I guess we could say, our little Halloween fans, because Halloween's this weekend coming up.
Yes, I would like to suggest the second issue for the new Stuff of Nightmares series from Boom Studios, which is written by R.L. Stein, the man himself behind Goosebumps, Fear Street, a lot of the horror stories that many of us 90s kids grew up with. Because, I gotta support my guy R.L. Stein.
Yeah, R.L. Stein. I was not a Goosebumps kid because it was past my generation, but I know my wife loved Goosebumps.
Oh, honey, you missed out.
I was fine. I caught the other cartoons, but yeah, this I definitely put this on the list because first of all, it's a horror anthology. It is R.L. Stein doing, and it's
Hmm.
really adult driven. It's not really
It's
made
not
for
really,
kids, but
yeah.
it's not
He's
exactly.
made a couple of attempts at doing horror specifically for adults. I have his Superstition novel, and I have the set of his Man Thing miniseries, which was released a few years ago from Marvel. But yeah, I think this is like the first time he's done an adult horror thing with his own characters not pre-existing.
Awesome. And now we got one more book. It looks like we're gonna go with a novel, right?
Well, this isn't a new release, but I want to suggest it anyway because I really enjoyed it. It's the Hollow original graphic novel from Boom Studios. I was lucky enough to pick up my own copy a few weeks ago when it first came out, and it's just completely charming. Not even just for like a Halloween story, it's just enjoyable in general. It takes, the Headless Horseman legend and puts it in a different direction. The artwork's great, the writing, the characters. Like, there's a reason why I keep going back to it, even though I've finished reading it a while ago. It's just a fun story, and I really suggest you guys pick it up. And I really hope that they're able to do like another book for this.
Awesome. So there you have it, guys. Those are our picks for this week. We hope you like it. We're going to talk a little bit about next week's picks. I got a little list here of some of the picks that I have here, and I'm sure you have some picks of your own, and we could talk a little bit more about it. So let's go ahead and start with our DC books because I do have it's a very Batman heavy week next week with DC. But the biggest book really is Batman Joker: The Deadly Duo. Why? Because it has Mark Silvestri returning to Batman. Even though he never had a run on Batman, he did do Batman. He did Batman Darkness, I remember, which first of all, I love Mark Silvestri. He was from those image people. He was one of those guys that was a true artist to me, but also with style. He had style.
I remember a few years ago, they had said something about him working together with Scott Snyder on, I think it was the new 52 Batman, like after the end of the Endgame storyline with the Joker, but then like nothing came out of it.
No, I don't think anything came out of it. So this had to be like Jim Lee making a phone call. That's what I'm thinking to myself. But yeah, I think when it came to Mark Silvestri, he's been behind the scenes lately, so it's nice for him to come out. I think the last thing I remember him doing in recent years was that X-Men run that he did a few years ago. Was it? I think it was the Messiah Complex
Yeah, I think
with Hope
so.
Summers, and it was okay. It wasn't like the greatest thing. It was rehashing of kind of like the same kind of tropes that we have in the X-Men world and things like that.
Yeah, if I'm being honest with you, I have a hard time focusing on that whole period of the X-Men comics between House of M and House of X. It just seemed to like blend together
Mhm.
in like 15 years of depressing storylines as the mutant population just keeps getting whittled
Mhm.
down.
It was also during a time where we did not want to talk about the X-Men, and when I say we, I mean Marvel.
Yeah, the
They
whole
the
movie
whole
rights
yeah the whole Fox
situation.
thing, so they didn't give the love that it deserved,
Mhm.
the love that it got in the 80s, that it got in the 90s. So the 2000s, all the love went and got pushed into the Avengers.
And then the Inhumans as well as the
Hmm.
replacement X-Men, which
Yeah, didn't work.
bombed fantastically for a number of understandable
And the Humans is
reasons.
such a great group of characters, but they weren't the X-Men.
Hmm.
And I think that was the biggest problem that we had with that.
So we did get Miss Marvel and Moon Girl out of it, but
Hmm.
they're really the exceptions and not
Hmm.
the norm.
And now in the Marvel universe, not Moon Girl, but Miss Marvel's now a mutant. So it's like, we're going back to what she originally was supposed to have been.
Mm.
So we'll see how that turns out. The other books that are coming out for DC that I have marked is Batman 129, the Chip Sargassky run that's happening. That it also has Leonardo Romero, who's doing the artwork. He's doing the artwork for Jorge Jimenez, who
Hmm.
he's filling in for him. Um, I personally have been loving the storyline of Failsafe. I've missed out a few issues recently because life.
Hmm.
But the ones that I did read, I did enjoy a lot. And this, we're at the fifth part of Failsafe. The Catwoman story has finished, and now we're at the second part of the next story, which is I Am the Gun Part Two. So what you get two comics for the price of one here. Have you been reading any of the Failsafe stories from Batman?
I've been looking into it from time to time, but I have such like a big backlog of comics. Of
Hmm.
course, I have to try to pay attention to what's going on in these books so I can suggest them to people and be
Hmm.
aware of what's going on. I do like the inclusion of the Batman of Zur and R, and it's
Hmm.
nice to see Tim Drake finally back to some more prominence as
Hmm.
Robin.
Yeah, exactly. Because we're seeing him more as a Robin as opposed to what they were trying to do with that Red
Red
Robin.
Robin or Drake
Hmm.
or
Yeah,
what?
he's always been my favorite Robin, personally speaking. I'm a Tim Drake guy. But then again, I'm a Wally West Flash. So I like the second generation characters.
And personally, my favorite Robin is Rochelle Wayne.
Hmm.
Let's see how many people get that reference.
There you go. All right, the other book that's coming. Oh yeah, by the way, before I even move on to the next book that's from DC, it's going to feature a special '90s covered foil multi-level embossed cover by Ryan Benjamin. So it's kind of like bringing back the '90s. DC has been doing a little bit of
Yeah.
these foil embossed covers. I think I kind of like them. It reminds me of the Avengers one with Vision that came out way back in the day, as I remember.
Yeah, DC's gonna be doing an entire theme of 90s style variants, but most of them, they're all just like kind of poking fun at the trends, really.
Hmm.
Like, you're gonna be seeing a Justice Society of America as if it was
Hmm.
done by Rob Liefeld or
Yeah.
Jim Lee, which I don't think any of us have ever been able to imagine because it's the friggin' Justice Society and the
Yeah.
guy who did. Then again, like, you had Alan Moore doing Youngblood,
I
and
remember that. Rob Liefeld managed to get Alan Moore to do stuff, so it was an interesting time.
yeah, well, I think he was trying a bit too hard to make up for what Watchmen and Killing Joke kind of created
Hmm.
as a cultural
And yeah,
thought set.
yeah, because he has a different vision from those stories. Last I heard,
Hmm.
in fact, about a week ago I saw something on him that he was saying that he had a different idea of what would come out of Watchmen, Beef, and then all these stories,
Yeah.
and now they have, even though they're still considered some of the greatest reads, which they are some of the greatest reads. but it's not what he thought
Yeah,
was
he's
going to
dealing with
happen.
the fact that people completely misunderstood what he was trying to say, and back then he felt guilty about and tried to do something to
Hmm.
mitigate the damage.
Yeah, exactly. The last book from DC that I'm picking out here from my list is Joker Man Who Stopped Laughing number 2, which is a continuation of the actual Joker series that came out. This is Joker going all over the place, right? Matt Rosenberg and Francisco Francavilla. I think if I mess up his name, I told you
I've
guys.
been pronouncing it Francavilla.
Francavilla? Yeah, it's Franca. I see the Um, Again, looking at what it says here is that have you ever wondered if you're the best version of you? What if the best version of you was on national television committing shocking acts of atrocities that could only perpetrate by the mind or bent and broken as the Joker? So, in other words, there is a copycat. That's what it sounds like to me. It sounds like there's a copycat criminal that is trying to impersonate the Joker, and of course, there's only one Joker according to the Joker.
Hmm. Well, I mean, it's not the first time DC's done that storyline. In the
Hmm.
late 80s, they had a two-part story, and I believe the main Batman series, where there was a copycat Joker running around,
Hmm.
and it ended with him trying to cement his transformation by jumping into a vat of chemicals at
Hmm.
the same place where Joker got skin bleached. But
Hmm.
unfortunately, the acids were a stronger formula than they were back then, so the guy ends up dying.
Yeah, go figure. There's some more books for DC that you had a pick that you wanted to share, which was the Poison Ivy book.
Well, I did want to comment on the fact that a lot of us were surprised that the Poison Ivy series has been doing so well that they managed to extend it from
Hmm.
6 issues to 12. I think the last time something like that happened was back with Brian Bendis's Wonder Comics imprint with both The Wonder Twins by Mark Russell and Dial H for Hero by Sam Humphries,
Hmm.
which was well earned in both respects because they were both good comics.
Yeah. All right. All right. Let's move on, and we're gonna go into our Marvel books for next week. Marvel has a big slate of books. There's actually 10 books scheduled from Marvel, but from those 10 books, there are some very important books that we will call, I guess we'll call them key books, starting with one of the biggest ones because,
Be
and
right back.
we got a customer here, so he's gonna step out for a second, but he'll be back. One of the books that are coming out next week that's a big deal for everybody, and you might want to pick it up, is Deadpool #1. Deadpool is going to get his new ongoing series. He's been away for a little while, but of course, they make an announcement for Deadpool 3 with Wolverine, and what's going to happen? Poof, we get a new Deadpool series coming out, and it's written by Allison Wan with Martin Cocolo. If I mess up his name, I'm sorry in advance. But he's back. Again, he's doing his thing. He's doing his normal shtick. He's auditioning for an elite group, and he has 48 hours to kill one of the most famous supervillains. Um, but he's been kidnapped. So go figure. The hijinks of Deadpool are always fun and enjoyable. I'm sure this is going to be no different. That's coming out from Marvel next week. Deadpool #1. Another #1 book that's coming out in a limited series is Secret Invasions with an S cap with by Ryan North and Francesco Mobile. The Skrulls are back, and Maria Hill is getting to the bottom of it, and she's getting Nick Fury involved. So I'm looking at this book as a nice jumping point for those of you who are interested in learning a little bit more about the Secret Invasion storyline. This one is, I'm sure, is going to mirror what the TV series will eventually be that's coming out sometime next year. So go check that book out. It's a good jumping on point for Marvel Comics. Another book that's coming out that is actually is still in its run, but it's one that I wanted to share with you, and because it's been fun so far, and that's Savage Avengers #7. Savage Avengers #7. David P. Post and Carlos Mango are in the 2099 universe, and Ultron is up to no good. The version of Ultron of 2099 is probably worse than the Voltron that we're familiar with. And it's up to Jack Gallows. Now, if you don't know the name, you definitely know the character. He is Punisher 2099, and he is alongside with the Savage Avengers going to stop the what's going on with Ultron. So that's a good book to pick up. That's a book that you might want to check out. So go check out that book. It's going to feature Deadlock. It's a lot of cool characters that are part of the Savage Avengers run. So those are your Marvel books that are coming out next week. Now, as Peter's still working on, he will talk a little bit more about those books. But here's another book that's coming out, and now I'll talk a little bit about some of the indie books that are on the way. Starting with Image Comics, the story Chroma. Chroma number one by Lorenzo De Felici. All right, let me go ahead and read the concept, and then you gotta tell me if you haven't heard this concept before. All right, imprisoned in a tower within the walls of the Pale City, Chroma is believed to be the most evil creature alive. But a chance meeting with the mysterious orphan Zet creates an opportunity for Chroma to escape her cruel, that is, if they survive the strange dangers within the city walls and the monstrous threats that lie beyond. Really, what this story is about, what Chroma is really, it's kind of like a Ghost in the Shell story. That's what I'm picking up. Beautiful covers. Excuse me. Beautiful covers. You want to go check it out. It's from the artist of Oblivion Song. He is doing a story, and again, the artwork's going to be gorgeous. Another two more books are coming out from Dark Horse Comics. One is called The Ones, and it's written by Brian Michael Bendis and with art by Jacob Eggert. The Ones takes the concept of who is the true one, but more importantly, what if all the ones got together to become a super team? Right, so it's going based off of that archetype. So envision Neo, envision Harry Potter, Percy Jackson, those people who are always been considered the one. Those are the ones that are getting together, and we're going to find out who is truly the one. So that's going to come from the mind of Brian Michael Bendis. He's been doing some stuff on Pearl, so there's a lot of good books there. Also, and Peter's coming right back. All right, so I'm talking a little bit about some of the indie books that are coming up. So the next one that I want to bring up, and then we'll talk about all the other books that are coming out, is Quick Stops, Dark Horse Comics. It's Kevin Smith. Another Kevin Smith's book is out with Jeremy Simser, and it's just an anthology about the FUSQ universe. I personally love Kevin Smith's characters, and you're going to see an anthology series that's featuring people from Clerks, Dogma, which is actually my favorite Kevin Smith movie. Dogma's my favorite Kevin Smith movie. I have my copy. It's hard to get and it's hard to see. Chasing Amy, Mallrats, Jane Silent Bob, and they're all putting together in an anthology series. So those are the indie books that are coming out. It's going back to you, Peter. Since I'm on the indie stuff, what's indie books are you interested in that's coming out next week?
I would like to take a look at Earth Divers #2 from IDW. I have the first issue. I haven't had a chance to sit down and read it yet. Hold on, but we should have a copy.
So there's
It's
this.
a time travel story about trying to kill Christopher Columbus
Yes, I remember that.
before he arrived on the North American continent and instigated several centuries of oppression and genocide, which is still going, if we're being honest. I'm sort of familiar with Stephen Graham Jones's
Hmm.
writing. I have one of his short stories in a collection. It came from the cinema or it came from the multiplex. I'm sorry, my memory is kind of bleh today. But so far, I just find it as it's an interesting story.
It's actually I remember picking up this, seeing this book, and I love the cover. In case you guys want to see it, it's a gorgeous cover. So let me put that up right there. Look at that cover. It's just I love how they just play with it because you have the skull and the head, but it also you feature the boats, the Nina, the Pinta, and the Santa Maria. It did come out last month, so it came out just in time for Indigenous Day,
Hmm.
right, which was formerly known as Columbus Day, and some people still call it Columbus Day. Go fig. But it is a book that I personally was interested in. I think I put it in my picks last time when it originally came out. So, go, definitely recommend it. Um, are there any other indie books that have been interested that you've been interested in? I know Mr. Easter came out, so from Scout Comics, which There's a lot of buzz behind Mr. East, though. All right, that came out this week, Mr. East. All right. Everybody's talking about Scott's comics, and this book is one of those books. It looks like a fun book. I haven't chance to look at it, but the artwork is first of all, first page I looked, the artwork is gorgeous. It has a bit of a Scotty Young flair to it. But just look at these color. Look at the colors in these pages, man. Just look at that. Scott Comics has always been one of those companies that they have some great books. A lot of buzz behind a lot of these books, but this one, just looking at these pages, it's just beautiful art. Like very very graffiti-ish, I would say, in that way. So this is out now, just finally came out. They've been talking about it for a while. So and I mentioned how Scott Comics has good books, but one of the bigger problems they've had is they've been delayed a lot. So they say a book is coming out, and in a year it's still coming out, it's still coming out, it's still coming out. But I'm glad to see that Mr. East is finally out. So that's a good book. I While you were talking, we were talking a little bit about some of the Marvel books that are coming out next week. I mentioned Deadpool, I mentioned Secret Invasions, and what was the other one I just mentioned here? Savage Avengers. Are there any books for Marvel that you have any interest in?
Well, I'm definitely going to suggest X-Men Red,
Mm-hmm.
which has been consistently interesting since it started and is offering a much needed look at the harsher aspects of the Krakoan society that's been building up since 2019, especially in regards to Abigail Brand and her brand of bullshittery that she's been doing
Mm-hmm.
since Sword. And it's good to see the continuing development of Thunderbird after he was finally brought back following 40 years of being one of the few comic book characters to ever actually stay dead.
Yeah, he did. He managed to stay dead for a long time. I know that
Yeah.
much. Hmm. Anything else from Marvel?
Well, Deadpool, I would say definitely give a chance. I've consistently heard good things about Alyssa Wong's writing,
Mm-hmm.
and it's been weird how he's been without a title for so long. I mean, Kelly Thompson's run was pretty good. I especially enjoyed those issues she did for King in Black
Mm-hmm.
with the interview segment with all the potential monsters to help dealing with the symbiotes. You know,
Mm-hmm.
I love it when she does that because I'm a huge Legion of Superheroes
Mm-hmm.
fan, and part of the joy of that was always the issues where they would have tryouts for new members, and you'd always have someone with some
Yeah.
ridiculous superpower like the Mess who attracts dirt,
Mm-hmm.
and Eiffel Ethel, that
Mm-hmm.
one kid who could only turn things green,
Mm-hmm.
and of course my gal Rainbow Girl, who
Yeah.
didn't even actually get to do anything until she came back for one issue of
Mm-hmm.
Action Comics in
Yeah.
the 2000s and then disappeared again.
All right. The great stuff. Anyway, with that said, we've been doing this for like 30 minutes now. It's been a long time. If you like what you see, go ahead and hit that like, subscribe to the channel. We'll try to do more of these in the future. Until then, I'm going to see you next time. And again, if you ever in this area, in New Rochelle area, come stop by Squiggy's Dugout. We got Peter here. Squiggy's not here today, but whenever he's here, he sits on his chair and he doesn't seem to move from that chair. But that's always great.
Well, it wouldn't be
We'll get Squiggy.
Squiggy's if he wasn't here to provide the ambiance.
Exactly. And he got this nice little. You got the lights. We got free trick or treat candy and comic
Oh,
books.
that's all thanks to his son.
Yeah.
But those two really do the best they can to be accommodating.
Yes. We'll see you next time on Izzy's playlist. I said playlist. I said Izzy's comics. See you guys. Bye. Now let's turn this